You are listening to the Break Time Tech Talks podcast, a bite-sized tech podcast for busy developers, where we'll briefly cover technical topics, news snippets, and more in short time blocks. I'm your host, Jennifer Reif, an avid developer and problem solver with special interest in data, learning, and all things technology. Even on Friday the 13th, I'm still here with the podcast. Last week was an exciting week at a conference that I haven't been to since before the pandemic. I will fill you in on all of the details there. And then this week was spent prepping for another exciting event in March. Without further ado, let me catch you up. I want to start off with a big shout out to Jfokus and all of the organizers and attendees and speakers and whole community that showed up to the event. It was a really fantastic as well as very busy event. I was really busy during the actual event. I was a bit too heads down to really pop my head up and evaluate and spend a whole lot of time in the moment realizing how cool it was. But after I left the conference and started my journey home and then recovered a little bit at home from getting back from jet lag, that's when I fully realized the impact of the amazing event there. I left feeling very excited, curious, and even motivated to dig into some more things, freshen up, and catch up on other things that I'd missed. During the event, I had a technical session that had really great attendance, and then also jumped in to help be a teacher's assistant in a colleague's workshop, as well as visited the Neo4j booth where we were running interviews for our Fika AI sessions. Those you can find on YouTube. They're just short and sweet conversations with various community representatives and well-renowned people just talking about technology and what they're working on and things that are going on in the space. I also spent some time talking to a ton of people that I hadn't met before or hadn't seen in a very long time. I will say on my technical session, the one really cool thing about Jfokus is that a lot of the rooms are stadium seating, which kind of feels a little bit intimidating and also kind of makes you feel like a superstar because you're down in the front. And there's a theater style seating where the seats start down lower and they move kind of up in a staircase type of format. It was a big room. It was well lit. Everything was well mic'd, well run. There was a sound person in every room that had everything set up and ready to go. So the process was very seamless and everything seemed to run really, really well. And I know that even though it appeared seamless and smooth and easy on the surface, I know that the organizers and support members and staff were working tirelessly to keep everything running and keep everything afloat and put out the fires so that nobody would see those things on the surface level. Stockholm was very cold and beautiful, even in February, so I was really glad to take advantage of a Swedish fika or two while I was there, which was a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite things about Sweden, the few times that I've been. The organizers put on a really great event. The theme was also really fun this year. It was a Viking theme. I enjoyed my Viking speaker picture. If you didn't see that pop up on social media, that was a ton of fun, and I thought it turned out really well. And the organizers were really great about asking for permission before posting it. I just thought it was so cool. I was really excited to use it and capitalize on that. I did feel the event was a good blend of community, fun, culture, technology, and learning that produced something really unique and well-rounded. I just had a great experience there. I hope to be back in the future years. So shout out to everyone there for such a fun event, and I hope to see you again in the near future. I've also been working on the Java book. Typically, when I write an outline, or typically I start with an outline when I start my writing, and then I start filling in those gaps and start writing the actual prose and the sentences and so on. And I kind of fill in those gaps as I go along in the writing process. However, the past couple of chapters, I end up in the middle of the chapter with a few things that are out of place. Either I've jumped around a little bit, I've pushed into later concepts too early, or at least earlier than I want to, etc. And so that I end up having to shift things around and then things feel a little bit disjointed. And so then I go back to the drawing board a little bit, back to the outline, and I organize all those details that I've started filling in as I have written things. And then once I get that outline better fleshed and fill in all those details, then I go back to writing with that solid foundation. So I've found that the best state of flow for me is a combination of a general outline and some flow writing, and then going back to the outline, filling in those gaps, and then doing some more flow writing. That's been really fun. I'm enjoying the experience still. I'm still working towards the deadline, and hopefully that will be out in the next few months. I also have another event coming up in March, so I'm preparing for that. I have both a solo session as well as a joint session. It's been a while since I've done a joint session, but I'm really enjoying the one that I'm working on for this. It's a really cool application for the joint session, and it's challenging lots of different aspects of my technology background, things like design and architecture and implementation skills. I hope to be able to share more with you the closer this gets, and of course after the event itself. But I will definitely keep you posted on that. I am learning a ton through this experience, and I will turn around and share that as well. The piece of content that I wanted to look at this week was a little bit busier, actually producing things and catching up on some things that I missed from last week. But I did get a chance to squeeze in a little bit of content that I soaked up. And the article that I read was 10 things you can do with Cypher that are hard with SQL. This is a blog post from Michael Hunger. It was written a little bit ago, but I finally had the chance to sit down and read it. Now, one of the things I've been working on is realizing that my Cypher skills are pretty decent, but not as advanced as I'd really like them to be. So I have a decent comprehension and understanding and some manipulation pieces that I can go in and tweak the logic where I need to, depending on the use case and what I'm looking to do. However, I still feel like there are some gaps in my knowledge and gaps that I want to fill. So one of the things that I hope to be able to look at this year is really pushing my skills forward in Cypher and just run across more problems that force me to learn some of the more advanced topics in the query language. This was a good starting point, at least, for me to look into areas that I could potentially dig deeper on, things that I don't quite fully understand the ins and outs of yet. This article kind of covered some of those things, as well as rehashed some things that I'm already familiar with. So first off, the article starts with a brief explanation of the design and differences between SQL and Cypher, just at a high level. Then it goes to a little bit of background on the data sets that are going to be used throughout the article in the examples. And then we dive right into examples. To summarize, mostly they have to do with patterns and paths, which that is what a graph database and the Cypher query language is designed to optimize. Remember that graph databases are designed to follow the patterns of node relationship, node relationship. Relationships are stored in the database with the entities themselves. And so then the query language needs to be able to construct those patterns and retrieve those patterns from the database. So that is what Cypher is very good at and is optimized to do. And so that is going to be a departure from other types of data stores that are not graph-based, right? So the first thing that it starts with is walking through a Cypher statement for each one of these 10 things, and then explains how that Cypher statement is working and what it's doing behind the scenes. The 10 examples that are covered in this article are path patterns and shortest path. So again, 2 examples of following paths and retrieving paths from the database. The next one, which I think is a huge differentiator for me when I learned Cypher coming from a background of SQL, was the aggregation without using group by. The group by and some of the other clauses and keywords that were in SQL always confused me. I never understood what was actually going on or what you were trying to do with those phrases inside SQL. However, when I switched to Cypher, then I comprehended and found out exactly what those are trying to do. You're trying to aggregate based on a grouping key, if you will, or a single field that you want to aggregate and group any other fields by. This, I think, is an extremely key component of my Cypher journey because it made so much more sense for other languages. This was a key component for me and something that I have found truly valuable in Cypher. A couple other examples listed were the lists and the map support and unwind and collect. Unwind and collect is something, or both things that I use all of the time inside Cypher. This is super valuable. They can be somewhat complex, but I find them pretty easy to reason about and something that I just use all the time when I'm working with data. The next on the list is pattern comprehension and map projections. Now, these two things are something that I generally know how to do and kind of comprehend what's going on. However, I don't understand the ins and outs and some of the more complicated use cases. So I really need to dig in on these two things, pattern comprehension and map projections, to understand the actual complexity and the things that they can handle and what it's actually doing under the hood. Last but not least, there's a few more here. We have combining reads and writes in the same query and transactional batching, always good things. And finally, it's loading data with some built-in data procedures, load CSV, as well as some procedures that help you with loading data from APIs. These are super valuable and something that I've used constantly. There's always work to be done, always more complicated use cases to approach and try there, but this is something that I use almost daily when I'm dealing with Cypher. I found this article really helpful, gave me some perspective on things that I know and understand well as some areas that I could dig a little bit deeper and further my knowledge of the Cypher query language. This month, even more than last month, has motivated me in the new year. January was still a bit of evaluation and decision making, but February has given some opportunities and direction that are looking to shape up a really fun year. I have plans to learn, build, and grow, and I hope you'll join me for this journey. As always, thanks for listening and happy coding.